your host, I Really Mean It Show podcast with your host, I Really Mean It Show podcast with your host, RGB, 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 RGB.
Thank you so much for those of you that will be joining on Facebook Live. This has been a great platform for us, for all of you. So I know you guys will be joining in here momentarily. And then for those of you that are listening on the podcast, you can always come to my Facebook profile, Ron Brooks on Facebook. You can find me and be able to join in and see us live again on Facebook. So Rooster, what's going on, my brother? Gil Carter, good afternoon. Again, thank you guys for joining in. And with no delay, we want to get started because we've got a very special guest here. We're actually here in downtown Memphis. And I'm really excited to be here, that someone of this stature would take the time to be on our little old podcast here with the I Really Mean It show. But we have Mr. Paul Young, who's the Director of Housing and Community Development here in the City of Memphis. And we want to go ahead and get started. So, Mr. Young, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Glad to be on the show.
Yeah, excellent. So, man, you know, there's so many things we could get into as it relates to your role and the things that you do here in the city. But I guess for those that, you know, maybe they've been under a rock and don't really know who you are and kind of what you do, you know, could you share with everybody kind of who you are and kind of how you came to get into this role?
So I'm born and raised Memphian, grew up here, grew up over in the Oak Haven area on the other side of the airport from Whitehaven.
Okay.
Graduated from East High School in '97. Go Mustangs. Left East High, went to college in Knoxville.
Okay.
Vols, even though we're having some coaching issues right now.
I think you kind of filling that in.
Yeah, we're making that work. Came back to Memphis. I graduated in electrical engineering at University of Tennessee. Couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with my life when I got back though. So I started looking around and I decided that grad school was probably the best option. I knew that I liked real estate and I knew that I wanted to help people. And so I enrolled in planning and development at the University of Memphis and got my master's in city and regional planning. Started working, went to New York for about a year, came back to Memphis, worked with Community Capital where we did affordable housing development. I was a financial analyst, so I worked on projects like Dixie Homes, which is now Legends Park. Worked on Lamar Terrace, which is now University Place, and consulted with a number of other nonprofits that were doing affordable housing work. I left there and went to county government, and I did work in legislative affairs for a while. Then I became the administrator for the Office of Sustainability, went back to the county mayor's office, did some legislative work, and then I immediately ended up in, not immediately, but my next role was this job that I'm in now, came in with Mayor Strickland in January of 2016. So excited to be a part of helping make Memphis great. And the beautiful community that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, because, you know, since you've been in role, I know there's been a number of initiatives that have come, you know, from your leadership, you know, Paul, that have really helped, you know, when you see some of the revitalization around Memphis.
Right.
And, you know, from my standpoint, being in the community and seeing, I haven't seen the community the way it is now. It seems like there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of interest into different projects kind of around town. And I know you and your team have had a part of it.
Yeah, we've been a part of it, but I certainly can't say that it's due to our work solely, because a lot of this momentum has been building for some years now. I think it's just Memphis's time.
Yeah.
I think that we've been putting in a lot of groundwork. We've had redevelopments of public housing in the city of Memphis. You see neighborhoods like Uptown that look dramatically different than it did 20 years ago. You've had ambitious projects like the Tennessee Brewery, where you're taking a 100-year-old building and turning it into something that is vibrant, where people will live and play. Same thing with Crosstown. We've kind of branded ourselves as a community as being successful at revitalization and doing it in a Memphis way,
right?
Not just in out of the box. We have one of the only sports arenas in the country that has been adaptively reused as a retail tourism outlet. Not many places can say that they've done something like that. Most of the time, when you have an arena of that size, it either goes away or it's used as a mega church or something that is not necessarily generating taxes.
Right.
This is generating tax revenue for the city. So there are some exciting things that are happening. We're excited to be a part of it. And HCD, Housing and Community Development, we've always been involved with projects like that. We serve as the entity that receives a number of the federal funds dedicated to supporting affordable housing, but we also serve as the development lead on behalf of the city when we take on major projects, which is why you've seen us involved with things like the Gateway project downtown, which involves the Pinch District and the Riverfront and Mud Island, as well as things like the Fairgrounds, where we've had a lot of discussion about what happens there in the future of that area. But we're also involved at the neighborhood level, so you will see and hear more about us being involved with Green and Healthy Homes and trying to align our funding and initiatives around how we can not only improve the aesthetics and how housing looks and feels, but how can we improve health outcomes? How can we make sure that people are healthier as a result of the money that we invest in this community?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Paul, you touched on a number of different things, and I know the Gateway project is really interesting.
Yeah.
How did that kind of come about, and who all's kind of interested or kind of involved in, quite frankly, being a part of that Gateway project?
Pretty much every project that we're involved with involves a large number of stakeholders.
Sure.
Gateway is no different. Obviously, it's being spurred by the investment that St. Jude is making in this community.
Right.
They'll be investing $9 billion over the course of the next 6 years, and that involves capital and operational costs. And what does that mean for this community? And when they came to the City of Memphis and Shelby County and asked for support on this project, they didn't want money to pour into their facilities. They said, pour some money into making the areas around us better. We want a place where our families feel good about walking around, and a place where their employees can go out and feel comfortable walking around and buying housing and just living and thriving in the area. And so they asked for support to redevelop the Pinch District, which is the work that we're going to be doing there. And we thought, we as a community, the city administration and a number of other stakeholders thought about how we might be able to leverage that for more.
Sure.
We have a TDZ that we use to build tourism development zone, that we use to build Bass Pro Shops, and it also was used to build the Cannon Center. We got about 14 more years left on that, and we have some additional capacity in the amount of about $100 million over the next 14 years. And so we felt like it would be important to try to figure out how we can continue to maximize this opportunity for the city. And that's where we came with the idea for an aquarium on Mud Island and the exciting prospect of the Brooks Museum moving downtown.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that, when I heard about that, it was interesting, particularly with the Brooks' involvement. They've been a staple at their current location for so many years, and for them to be able to see that kind of vision and kind of catch on, I thought was just outstanding. And then, like you said, with the other stakeholders that are looking to be a part of that project, I think it really will set us apart once that's executed on.
It will definitely set us apart. I mean, if you think about how most major cities have a major museum in their downtown area. Obviously, we have the Civil Rights Museum, which is a tremendous asset for the city of Memphis, and adding another museum downtown will be exciting for tourism. It'll be exciting for Memphians. It just so happened that the Brooks, the timing for this project aligned with what the Brooks was exploring for their future and their growth. And they've outgrown some of their existing facilities. So it's just the alignment of the stars. I really feel like Memphis is ready to just really take it to the next level, and things are lining up to make that happen. So we are excited about that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forward.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And we're here again with Mr. Paul Young, who is the Director of Housing and Community Development here with the City of Memphis on the I Really Mean It Show podcast. So, Paul, obviously, you know, the big elephant in the room often is the Fairground project. And I know that there's at times controversy as you include the Mid-South Coliseum as a part of that conversation and some of the surrounding neighborhoods. And so, you know, what's kind of your thoughts on, you know, kind of where you see that project, you know, going, and not to touch on some of the controversy, but, you know, some of the things that you all are doing, you know, to connect it to the rest of the community.
And we can touch on the controversy. I mean, I think it's important for the public to be involved in projects like this and be able to voice concerns and issues, and we try to be responsive and share all of the information that we have.
Yeah.
And we will continue to do that. But the Fairgrounds is an exciting opportunity for the City of Memphis. We have a unique opportunity where we are the only city in the state of Tennessee that can utilize the tourism development zone one more time. And what that means is we're able to take sales taxes that are generated in an area around what they call the qualified public use facility, which would be the Fairgrounds. In an area around the Fairgrounds, we can take the growth in sales taxes and use that to pay for an improvement that will enhance tourism.
Okay.
And the state did away with that law some years ago, but this is the last one that can be allowed to happen in the state of Tennessee. And so we're excited about having that opportunity. And the tourism attraction that we kind of zeroed in on is youth sports. As many people know, there's a tremendous industry for youth sports.
Absolutely.
Nationwide, you see many cities have facilities like this. And we think that Memphis is already a very strong tourism destination. We think that having a facility that can accommodate basketball, cheer, fencing, all types of indoor sports is really going to help set us aside from some of the other competitive areas. We also believe that the facility is not going to be utilized 24/7 by competitive sports. I mean, by outside groups doing competitive sports.
Exactly.
We think that there's an opportunity to work with our nonprofits and other community serving organizations to also utilize the building to serve our local youth with different programs. And so we're starting conversations with those groups now so that we can firm up what that looks like. So that's kind of the plan for the site. We have the buildings on the site, but there's also a number of recreational areas around the buildings.
Right.
There's some covered pavilions that will have basketball courts under them, which can double as areas where you can do temporary activations like ice skating, like they did on the river.
Right.
Some months ago, or I guess it was about a year ago now. So just trying to make spaces where it can be multifunctional and can be used by various members of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, with that, as you touched on, you know, Paul, it connecting to other parts of the community. Of course, I'm an Orange Mound native, so I definitely have a soft spot in my heart for the Mound. And so one of the things that I heard recently that I really liked that was mentioned was some connectivity to Orange Mound, giving the geographic area of the Fairgrounds. And so could you speak about that, how it kind of ties to the area?
So we wanted to make sure that if we have this opportunity to take tourism dollars and to impact a significant area of our community, how can we make it a much bigger community development win? Because I'm a community development guy. I want to see people in the neighborhoods be able to have direct benefits. And one of the things that we thought about was there couldn't be much bigger win than having a facility that's been vacant for 40 years that is directly across the street from housing and that kids walk past daily, which is a visible demonstration of neglect. If we're able to activate that as a part of the Fairgrounds, it's a significant win to me. And what I'm referencing is the old historic Melrose High School. That building has been an anchor in what is one of the most historic communities in the country. And trying to figure out how we can activate that space is something that we thought was very important as a part of this project. Now, would be a significant amount of TDZ funds that would go in. I think in our budget estimate, we said around $2 million. And that's still, just an estimate of what would come from the TDZ. It's still going to take many other dollars in order to get that project done.
Absolutely.
And so, we're working with community groups and members of the community to try to figure out what that plan looks like for the site. But I think that it's generated some excitement. The other part of the project that we thought about for Orange Mound is enhancing connectivity. So all of the different corridors under the railroad tracks, how can you enhance lighting? Some of them I think have gotten some improved lighting over the years.
Yes.
But not only lighting, but you can improve it by having different artists paint the walls and just make it feel like a space where you want to go on either side of it. It pulls you into the corridor. And then the last piece is improvements for the Lamar and Airways Shopping Center. That's actually the first commercial corridor that you actually hit when you're coming from the airport.
Right.
And our hope is that while we know people will go and spend money at Cooper Young and Overton Square and Broad Avenue, some of the other commercial corridors that we included in the TDZ, our hope is that we will also be able to get some economic growth at that shopping center as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I've mentioned, so I think the old Melrose High School closed somewhere around 1980, 1979, somewhere in there.
Something like that.
Yeah. So I know for many years, most of my life, it's been vacant, and it's always kind of been kind of a source of, obviously neglect and lack of viability and things like that. And so I've had a conversation, I know Brittany Thornton with Juice Orange Mound.
Yeah, shout out to Brittany.
Yeah, shout out to Brittany. She's been on the show. She's a friend of the show.
Yes,
and she's been phenomenal at kind of bringing some awareness. And that's been something that we've discussed. I know she's discussed with other people, was the old Melrose High School building. So, what other projects should people be aware of here in the city, Paul, that maybe don't get as much publicity? They may not be as sexy as sometimes the Fairgrounds project is, but what other projects should Memphians be aware of?
So, there's a number of them. One that I would definitely reference is one that I kind of mentioned in my opening remarks, which is the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative.
Yes.
And so with Green and Healthy Homes, what we're doing is we're working with LaBonner, Shelby County Health Department, Shelby County Housing Department, Planning and Development, a number of different stakeholders to figure out how we can make the system for providing support for residents better. It shouldn't be that if you need some type of assistance to improve your house, that you have to go through this maze of agencies.
Right.
We're government, and government needs to figure it out for the customers. The customers are all the residents. So what about having one point of entry? If you can apply for one thing, and then government brings you a menu of options that you have available to you to provide support for you and your household, we feel like that's much better. And as we do that, how can we ensure that we are tackling health issues as well? So in many of the houses, you think about some of the indoor air quality issues that you have. A lot of that triggers asthma. So some of the high flyers that you see at the LaBonner ER for asthma visits, it's because they have triggers in their home. It's because their homes haven't been efficiently renovated. And so as we spend money, we're spending money on renovating housing all the time.
Exactly.
How can we target it in a way that's better than we've done before? Shelby County provides a number of different resources. How can we target their resources so that we impact in the same family so that we have more significant outcomes for the community? And so we're excited about collaborating with all of the different groups on that. Another project is South City. Many have heard us talk about the redevelopment of Foot Homes. It's the last traditional public housing development.
Absolutely.
We're working on that in partnership with Memphis Housing Authority, McCormick Barron Salazar, Women's Foundation, Urban Strategies, ComCap partners. There are a host of partners that are involved with that renovation, but we have 420 units of public housing that's been torn down now. All the families have been relocated, and what we are rebuilding is 712 units of what we're calling mixed income housing, 480 of which will be affordable. And so we're actually replacing more affordable housing than currently exists there today, and we think it's going to have a dramatic impact on growing that area of downtown and South Memphis. And our hope is that that redevelopment activity will continue deeper into South Memphis.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with these various projects, Paul, if I'm a small business owner, here in Memphis, and a lot of times we hear about the opportunities that come from being a contractor
Right.
and things like that. And there's been a lot of movement. Shout out to Joanne Massey with the Office of Diversity, Business and Diversity, with them kind of leading some of that charge. But if I'm not a contractor, say I've got a business, I'm not in, I'm not in renovation or not a contractor, how could I involve my business or possibly be considered as a vendor and things like that for some of these projects?
I think there are a number of ways. In areas like South City, we'll be looking at various incentives for storefront improvements and things of that nature so that we can ensure that local businesses in that area are able to benefit.
Yeah.
And depending on what your small business is, I think it's important to go down to City Hall and make sure you get registered as a vendor. If you're a minority vendor, it's important to sign up as a minority vendor because when these opportunities come about, it may not necessarily be for construction. It may be that we're looking for videographers or photographers or any other professional services like architects and engineers. We need those types of entities to sign up and be a part of our database so that we can know who you are and be able to reach out to you and provide the various opportunities.
Yeah. And so how do people get signed up to be a vendor or be considered? Is that pretty much done online, or is it?
I would have to talk to Joanne. I always just call Joanne and I say, hey, Joanne, I have somebody that needs to sign up. But I'm sure on the City of Memphis website, there's a section, I know it is, there's a section for vendors that walks you through what the process is to sign up.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to speak to the audience, so Paul's already shared and laid out, there's several projects and things going on, and there's ways for you to get involved, but you got to take action, right? And so, Paul can't come to your business or to your house and get you out of bed and come on, let's go, get involved, right? You have to do that yourself. And so, I would share that with everybody, whether you're listening on the podcast, you're here on Facebook Live, is get involved. You have to get up, be creative. You have to have a viable business. So seek the help that you need so that you can be involved in some of these projects. I think a lot of times what happens is there's a lot of complaining and things like that about not having the involvement, but then people don't take the action steps that are laid out when the platform's provided. And so you have to take advantage of those opportunities, for all of you that are here listening on the podcast or on Facebook Live. So I encourage you, I plead with you. There's opportunity out here. There's going to be more opportunity as you see it, and you can be a part of that. But you're going to have to do your part with that. So, Paul, again, we definitely appreciate you, taking time out. Is there anything else you'd like to maybe share with us?
Well, one point that I missed, and I think it's important that the listeners know that Memphis 3.0, which is the comprehensive planning initiative that's underway right now, is the guiding principle for all of the work that we're going to be doing right now and moving forward. For the past 30 years, the City of Memphis has not had a new comprehensive plan. And so what has happened is development just kind of happened as it may. And the prior strategic plan, comprehensive plan that we had, our plan was to grow. And it said we want to grow further and further eastward. And we achieved that goal, but we didn't grow in terms of numbers of people. So what we now have is a very large geographic area with roughly the same number of people that we had in 1980. And so it's important that we think about how we can reverse that trend. How can we grow the density of our city? And we want to be more strategic and thoughtful about how we do those things. So all of the projects that we referenced today, we want to do them in line with Memphis 3.0 planning. They're starting the neighborhood or district planning phase right now. I think they're starting with the North District. But check out the Memphis 3.0 website because I think it's important for the listeners to participate in those hearings. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm a part of the Memphis 3.0 along with Joanne and Kenny Woods and many others, stakeholders from around the city business owners and community leaders. And you hit on a great point in terms of the geographic square mileage size of Memphis, which is larger, I believe, than New York City and some other cities.
And Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you think of the city now stretches essentially from the river and basically in some cases out these borders up to Eads, Tennessee.
Right.
That is a large geographic area, particularly when you don't add the people.
Right.
And so, definitely, it's an opportunity for all of us to be involved in. And Paul's correct. The Memphis 3.0 initiative, you can be a part of that. Definitely go to the site as Paul mentioned and get yourself involved, or you can reach out to me. I can help you get plugged in into the information, some of the think tank initiatives that go into that. So, yeah, absolutely. So, man, Paul, again,
right,
thank you so much. Man, I appreciate it. I know it's Friday afternoon, and we're here downtown Memphis. This was Paul Young, Director of Housing and Community Development with the City of Memphis. And get yourself involved. If you're not in Memphis, and you're interested in Memphis, please come here. Reach out to me, reach out to Paul. We definitely would love to have you as part of what's going on here in Memphis. It's great to be here. Man, I love this city. Again, we thank Paul for the work and the leadership that it takes. And that's what it takes. It takes leadership, it takes vision, and then we have to be supportive. And I think if we do that, there's great things on the horizon for this city and for this area. So thank you again, Paul. Thank you all here on Facebook Live. I didn't get a chance to shout out everybody like I normally do, but thank you so much for joining. For those that are listening on the podcast, thank you so much. Of course, you can catch the podcast at www.ireallymeanitpodcast.com. We're all over anywhere that you listen to podcasts, Google Play Music, iTunes, SoundCloud, what's the other one? Spotify, YouTube, all these different places. Make sure you go out there and check us out. Share the podcast. If you have questions that come up for Paul, send those in to our Facebook page, I Really Mean It Podcast with RGB, and I'll be sure to get those to Paul to get answers for you. But again, thank y'all so much, and you all have just a wonderful day, and enjoy your weekend. Holidays are coming up. Get your business, get yourself ready for 2018. It's going to be a lot of noise.
You are experiencing the I Really Mean It Show podcast with your host, RGB.
Next year. Don't get caught up in all the hype and hoopla, things like that. Keep your faith going, keep your aggressiveness going towards your goals, and you'll be successful. I'm RGB, Paul Young.
I Really Mean It Show
Thank you so much for joining, and we're out.
I Really Mean It Show
Have a great
podcast with your host, I Really Mean It Show podcast with your host, RGB, 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 RGB.
It's good. Well, yeah, you mentioned a little bit about the college. Some of the time. You didn't go into it too deep.